Okay, so today I want to talk about my thoughts on the recent Cawdcast and I guess David Schumacher's interview on it, I suppose is the best way to say it. I was going to do a full analysis on David Schumacher, but I think it'd just be better for me to do my thoughts on how he's doing recently and some of the statements that he made on the Cawdcast. So first off, I want to start off by saying that when David first appeared, when his segment first aired on TCAP, and I first saw it, I thought it was hilarious, of course, as many of us did. But after watching it back a couple times and watching it once more right before recording this, and being more critical about his character and things like that, and the claims that he makes, my opinion of him wasn't very good. It was very low. He seemed the type of guy to not take responsibility for his actions. A serial criminal. Somebody, he's a repeat offender. He runs from the police. He has no respect for authority or respect for anybody else. He doesn't really care about anybody else, is what it seems like to me. And since watching the recent Cawdcast and hearing some of the statements he made on the recent Cawdcast, my opinion of him is largely the same. Much like Lauren, he claims that I was framed by perverted justice. I'm not a pedophile. I wouldn't be a pedophile. I didn't show up to the house to have sex with a girl, which I agree with him on that. I don't think he showed up to the house to have sex with a girl. What I think he came to the house to do was pick up the girl, go to the party, or the block party, whatever it was, get her drunk, and then have sex with her. That's what I think his intentions were. And I think that during the Cawdcast, he was just spouting a bunch of crap, and people should have been more critical towards him. And I understand you remain respectful to David and you don't want to just lash out, oh, you fucking pedophile, because then he wouldn't be talking to us in the first place, right? And I think that's fine. But it's just a matter of, I understand you want to keep him there and you want information, things like that, but I think that there was too much of, he made a statement and then everybody sort of accepted it as a fact right off the bat. Like when he said, perverted justice changed my chat logs and things like that. Oh, and I guess it's going off the notion that he wasn't convicted, which I understand that. That's fine. He wasn't convicted. That must mean he's not guilty. I don't think that's the case. And I'm not trying to say anybody else in the Cawdcast did a bad job. I'm not trying to bring anybody down. I just think they should have been more critical of him. I think the only person who I think did really a great job in that Cawdcast, not to say that anybody else did a really bad job particularly, but I think that Joey did a great job of being very critical of David and bringing up points to counter him, which David didn't have much to say to what Joey said to him at all, because David knew he was BSing everybody, and a lot of people in the comments were going, oh, David's a nice guy, he's not as bad as everybody, he's not a pedophile, and he is just weaving this web of bullshit, and everybody's going for it, and it really got to me, and this guy is manipulating everybody into thinking, he's a good guy, he was never going to have sex with a little girl, and things like that, which is complete and utter bullshit. His intention was to pick up this girl from the house, go to the block party, drink with a 14-year-old girl, then have sex with her. Those were his intentions. And first off, I believe the statement was made pretty early into the Cawdcast, when David mentioned, the police in his area are after him and his family, which whenever somebody makes that statement, I just think less of them. They don't know how law enforcement works, and I happen to know law enforcement because again, a lot of people in my family are in law enforcement, and that's the career path that I'm going down. So I'm pretty familiar with how that field of work works, and David doesn't understand. And anybody else who makes that claim in the first place, believe me, David isn't the first person to make the claim that the police are just after him. No, you're a serial criminal who doesn't understand to not break the law. But he just doesn't seem to get that, and people like him don't seem to get that. Because if we think about this logically, no police officer wants to arrest people. It's just, I think if you think about this logically, don't you think as a police officer it'd be better for you to go about your day driving around your community, talking to members of your community, getting to know them, eating lunch, and just enjoying your time? Or do you want to be going around giving people tickets and arresting people and just dealing with angry people all day? Of course not. Nobody wants to do that. And for some reason, some people like to think that when a police officer gives a ticket, they get paid more or something, or commission on giving tickets, or a commission on arresting people. That's just not true. It's not how it works. And it's so jarring. I'm not saying David said that, but a lot of people come out and make that statement. which is just simply not true. That's like saying a McDonald's worker gets paid more for every burger they sell. No, they don't. That's just a part of their job. So yeah, that statement really right off the bat got to me, in the sense that I just lost a lot. I lost even the little respect that I had for David in the first place. I lost, in the sense that I was coming into this thinking David was going to take responsibilities and say, you know what, I tried to do what I did, it was wrong. But he was hopping off the back of the fact that he wasn't convicted. And which sounded great. At first, David wasn't convicted. He must have been innocent. He wasn't going to have sex with a 14-year-old girl. And Joey brought up a very good point. That's the reason why he wasn't convicted. And David brought up, I forget the name of the contributor that David was not happy with. I don't remember the name. But anyways, David brought up that this person refused to hand over their hard drive and proceeded to wipe their hard drive when federal authorities came to pick it up for evidence. And Joy brought up a good point. And I'm before I make this statement, I'm not here to defend perverted justice and say that they're perfect without flaws. I'll be the first person to say that perverted justice aren't exactly the most professional organization in the world. They tend to just do some odd things. Like, let's get a guy naked just for our personal laughs, which I don't think is professional at all or appropriate. Some of the things they say in the chat logs, I mean, I understand you want to laugh a little bit. It's a rough job. It's not an easy job. I get it, but perverted justice isn't perfect. And in this particular sting and in David's particular case, they made a mistake. I believe what Joey had said was they had pictures of minors that they sent to David, and I don't think it was child pornography or anything like that, but I think Florida has a zero tolerance policy or zero tolerance law with pictures of minors, not even, not naked, but just sending a picture of a minor when you're not actually that minor, as I believe against the law in Florida. And I believe what Joey was saying is they have a zero tolerance policy towards that, and that is why this particular contributor wiped their hard drive, because they didn't want to be charged criminally with doing this. And had they not have sent those pictures, I believe David would have been convicted. They had a pretty good case on him and what he said in his chat, and I think Ember made a statement that I don't exactly agree with the statement that Ember made during the Cawdcast when she said there's another she said, I believe her quote was, there's another man named Lord Armstrong who makes the exact same claims as you, that he was framed by perverted justice, but he has no evidence. And I'm not going to try to bring down Ember. I think Ember is great. I really do love her content. I think she's hilarious and she does some great work, but nobody is infallible and people make mistakes. And I think maybe Ember didn't phrase something right, and I don't know if she meant to say something different. I'm not going to sit here and say that Ember is horrible or anything like that, but I just don't think that statement is accurate, because David doesn't have any evidence either, nor can he get any evidence. He will never have any evidence of these claims that he makes, that he was framed by perverted justice or whatever. We'll never have evidence for these claims, because, like David said, the chat logs are gone. And all we have is all the chat logs that we have to go off of are on Perverted Justice's website. Well, I think David is lying through his teeth, just like he does the rest of this, the rest of the Cawdcast or the interview with him, whatever you want to call it. I think he's a habitual liar. Of course he is. He's a criminal. That's just what they do. And then he also said that the girl said she was 24, or her profile said she was 24, and he had no assumption that it was a minor in the first place. And he was really surprised when he got arrested for trying to have sex with a minor, that he wasn't expecting anything to do with a minor. And there's a really big flaw in that. There's a really big logical flaw in that whole argument that he made. If he wasn't expecting to be there for a minor, why did he make the claim that he was in a role-playing chat room, dude? Because later on in the Cawdcast, David admits that this whole role-playing chat room thing was a lie. So if he was truly so surprised, like, whoa, minor, what are you talking about, 14-year-old, then why did he say it was a role-playing chat room? Why did he say that? That doesn't make any sense. Because surely if he was so surprised that it was a 14-year-old, then he wouldn't have said that. He would have just said, no, I'm looking for a 24-year-old, which he never mentioned at all in any of his uncut footage or any footage we have of him. was never mentioned, and I don't believe it was mentioned. Probably was mentioned in the court case, but I don't know much about that. And I think that's just the number one fallacy in David's argument. I think David is an idiot, and he is a scumbag, and he is nothing but a lazy bum who sits on his porch all day and smokes weed. He doesn't contribute to society. I don't think he's a menace to society. I just don't think he has anything to contribute to society. He's useless. I'm not saying smoking weed is a bad thing. It's a bad thing when you laze around all day smoking weed, eating junk food, and playing video games. And what really got to me as well is how David was grasping at straws for some sort of like fame, I guess, was to come out and say, also another thing that really got to me was David said if he was there with Chris Hansen, he'd grab him by the throat and snap his neck or whatever. Well, I don't think David is smart enough to know, but Chris Hansen has nothing to do with perverted justice in the sense that Chris Hansen has no idea about the process that perverted justice are going through while they're talking to these guys. Chris Hansen shows up a few days before they film the segment. He gets debriefed about these guys, and he gets the chat logs, and he gets to know the guys. And even in a lot of the cases, he doesn't even get that much of debriefing. He just goes off of what the name that the predator tells him, and he looks at the chat log. That's all he has, which I would assume is highlighted on the piece of paper that what particularly sticks out in the chat logs. So David, no, Chris Hansen was not there to try to frame you or anything. Chris Hansen was just a TV presenter, and in his sort of, I'm going to snap Chris's neck was just the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life, because that, again, shows me that David is an idiot, very ill-educated. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's just, David, I really do not like David. He's just watching that whole thing really got to me, just hearing him lie through his teeth and weave this web of just complete bullshit. And there are a lot of people feeding into it, which is so ridiculous. And again, when David said the whole segment, Joey sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but Joey made a good statement when he said, so everybody else in the investigation was legit besides you. They just wanted to frame you, right? Because you're so entertaining, David. And he didn't have much to say to that either. As well as Joey brought up the fact that David said, they were brought down because of me. Perverted justice and To Catch a Predator was brought down because of me. And then Joey, of course, countered that with the claim of, no, David, you did not shut down Perverted Justice or MSNBC's investigations. That was the prosecutor or this assistant district attorney, actually, I believe, in Texas, Murphy, Texas. It wasn't you, David. You have nothing to do with it. You're a lazy bum who sits on your couch and smokes weed all day and plays video games. You're useless. You don't contribute anything to society. And frankly, you just pissed me off because of the bullshit that he weaves and the fact that he's lies through his teeth. And I'm not saying anybody who participated in the Cawdcast actually believed anything of what he was saying. Personally, what I think what was going on in the Cawdcast was they were being respectful to him, like I said before, because they didn't want to, they didn't want to come out and say, fuck you, David, you're a pedophile or a predator or whatever. That wouldn't do much for them, right? But we want the information about the other guys and what happened with them, and I'm sure David knows something about them and things like that, which is what Joey brought up at the end of the Cawdcast when he was going to send in pictures of the guys caught in the sting and get David's statement about these guys, which is great. We get more information about these guys. So yeah, I completely understand why they didn't come out and be why they weren't more critical about David, but I just think that they were a little bit too respectful and too cordial with him. They should have been more critical with him because he's a habitual offender. He's a criminal. He has no respect for authority. He has no respect for anybody. He doesn't care about anybody else. He thinks the police are out to get him for whatever reason. He's a complete idiot. He's a dimwit. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But that's all I have to say about David Schumacher, the wigger. I want to talk about that style first off. That he came to this thing with the echo and the whole wigger getup. That's just a product of the early 2000s. I think he's just a victim of that. I don't blame him for the style. That's just again a victim of the early 2000s. I think when this was filmed, I was like 9 years old or 10 years old. I believe this was 2006. So I was probably 9 or 10 years old. And so yeah, even at 9 years old, I wanted to dress up like that. I had Echo shirts and basketball shoes and everything. So whatever. I don't care about that. But he's come to this whole stoner look and oh dude, I don't smoke weed and relax. Just it's so that whole mentality and everything just so obnoxious to me. Like listen, like I said before, I don't have a problem with people who smoke weed or whatever, do it recreationally. That's none of my concern. I don't care what I'm very libertarian. I think I don't care what you do in your home or as long as you're not impeding on anybody else's rights. I don't care. It's none of my business. But it's just so obnoxious. And somebody brings this whole culture around them smoking weed. Like, is it really that important in your life? I mean, it's like if somebody made a culture around smoking cigarettes. Like, that would just be weird and cringeworthy, frankly. It's so absurd to me. And David is, he's an idiot. But anyways, that's the end of my rant about the Cawdcast. This is a rather short video. But what are you going to do? I will be doing an analysis for the next video. It's not going to be this 15-minute, 60-minute, whatever this is. Little thought, I guess, about the Cawdcast. It's not going to be David Schumacher. I have no intention of doing this. I mean, he's funny, but he's not super interesting. Nothing really underlyingly interesting about him as much as like somebody like Jerry Wayne Martin Kosis, who has some sort of like underlying, some sort of mystery about him that you want to figure out. There is other guys that I have the intention of analyzing, which hopefully in the next couple of days I'll have another video out. But that's the end for that.